Are we ready to go, Ryan?
Yep,
Chris?
we can hear you.
Great. Okay, so I want to thank everyone here for joining me today. I'm here to discuss a very, very important topic with everybody. We all remember that heartbreaking 2021 National Guard helicopter crash that occurred in Mendon, New York, just outside Rochester. It took the lives of 3 brave U.S. service members who all served in Afghanistan and then continued their service in the National Guard. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Stephen Skoda, Chief Warrant Officer 4, Christian Koch, and Chief Warrant Officer 2, Daniel Pryl. And I am joined today by many of their family members on the Zoom. I grieve with you all for your loss. Honor these 3 brave and valiant guardsmen who dedicated their lives to service in our country. This is what America's all about. People who serve their country and are really willing to risk their lives for us. And it's so sad that we lost these 3. What the scriptures tell us, however, is that the natural thing in tragedy is to turn inward, curse the darkness. But these beautiful families that are on the Zoom today are trying to prevent future accidents like this. The Bible says when you try to do that, even though your loss can never, never, never come back, and the hole in your heart exists every single day, but you are lighting a candle. The Bible says doing something like this is a saint-like act, honoring those who we have lost to help others. So it's an honor, a true honor, to have all of those family members, all of the family members who are here today with me, and all the others who have helped us fight to pass to get this GAO report done. Now, at the time of the devastating 2021 crash, I joined the community in calling for an immediate investigation into the matter and for the federal government to determine new guidelines as to how we can keep our service members on helicopters safe. Sadly, our calls then are even more potent now, after yet another tragic helicopter crash this month in Kentucky occurred. 9 soldiers were killed when 2 U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters collided during a routine training mission at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. So we need action. We cannot let this horrified trend continue. And today, after years of advocacy, I'm announcing that the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, has completed their review of the accident near Rochester, and as we asked them, hundreds of others like it across the country, and they are recommending critical safety reforms. We must work together to improve vital flight safety measures for our National Guard pilots and secure the skies. And now the GAO, a very, very respected and nonpartisan part of the Congress, agrees. The GAO did a thorough review, looking at both Army and Air National Guard helicopter accidents, including the 2021 crash near Rochester, to determine trends, to existing safety processes and current deficiencies related to the nearly 298 accidents that occurred between 2012 and 2021. This new report recommends some very, very important safety measures. First, we need to improve efforts to ensure pilots receive the training hours called for in the Army and Air National Guard established flying hour goals. This would significantly reduce human error accidents. Second, the GAO recommends creating a database to track incidents and implementation of post-crash recommendations. Implementing this kind of database would play a huge role in decreasing the number of crashes we see every year. If we can learn the lessons from previous crashes, we can go a long way to preventing the next one. And third, we need to remove the bottlenecks that hinder National Guard helicopter pilot training, including maintenance issues and access to flight simulators. More maintenance crews are needed so that the helicopters can be repaired faster and pilots meet their required flight hours. Our pilots spend too long waiting for repairs and then miss out on valuable time training in the skies. Similarly, more flight simulators would boost training hours. And I'm asking both the Army and Air Force to add them at facilities in Rochester and elsewhere that now lack them. It's relevant to Rochester because while the New York Army National Guard investigation into the tragic Rochester crash concluded the crash was caused when a procedural error happened during the emergency training maneuver they were practicing, the Army did change its policy and declared that going forward, this maneuver will only be practiced in a simulator, not in a real flight. The Rochester facility does not currently have a simulator, and lack of access to simulators is one of finding the GAO report states contributes to pilots not meeting training goals. I am going to fight hard to get the Air Force and Army to get the resources to improve access to flight simulators in Rochester, in New York, and across the country. So now that the report's done and safety reforms have been determined that would help stop crashes from occurring, I'm calling on the Army and Air Force to carefully review the GAO's findings and work quickly to implement their recommendations. Hold on a second here. Flight requirements have been one of the biggest problems. Flight hour requirements have been one of the biggest problems we've seen so far. Many pilots are falling short of their branch's own goals for how long pilots should train. Let me say that again. The pilots in training aren't even able to meet their own goals. This is a huge safety concern that has to be fixed immediately. Rochester and New York suffered an unforgettable loss 2 years ago. Now it's a constant reminder that the safety of our service members must be our number one, our highest priority. But let's remember that many of these devastating crashes are preventable, and these safety reforms are the first step to making sure that our pilots are well prepared in every flight. Adopting the GAO's plan is critical to mitigating the risk that of these flights and ensure that service members have the proper training, resources, and capability to do their jobs safely. We have a duty to protect the brave men and women safeguarding our nation every day. And that starts with implementing these critical recommendations. So I thank everyone for listening, particularly the families of the loved ones who were lost, who we dearly miss, and who we are so proud that they defended their country and made the ultimate sacrifice. If anyone from the families wants to say a few words, I'll call on them. Otherwise, we'll go to the questions from the press. Okay, press questions.
Yeah, this is Wendy Wright from Spectrum News.
Yes.
Yeah, I am wondering if the family, does have reaction to this. This is one of these things that, we covered extensively when this tragedy happened, and we're wondering if any of the members of the family would like to speak on behalf of all of them in regards to, the efforts now to make things safer for the National Guard members now.
I would like to speak, if I may. I'm Christian Koch's mother, Josephine.
Go right ahead, Josephine, and thank you for all you're doing.
My son would have retired this year. His little son is 5 years old, and that was his goal, to retire this year. One thing that I learned from the crash was that they were coming out of COVID, and because the simulators were shut down in Fort Indian Gap, they didn't have the opportunity or the option to get up to speed with their simulator time. And I think it was an event of timing, with a new pilot coming in and needing to be checked out without the simulator access, that was part of the problem. The other thing I learned from an article was that there was some proprietary software that the Army purchased to the tune of $10 million back in 2016. So they had their own software for the conversion and the updating to happen more efficiently between 2016 and 2025. It's supposed to be completed. That's 9 or 10 years of time that seems very slow to me. And the third thing that Senator Schumer brought up that I'm very grateful for is the lack of simulators. And Rochester could share theirs with Buffalo and Syracuse. There's nothing in Western New York. that would allow them access. And I did speak to a simulator instructor who told me that, there's updating, upgrading, changing things that take them out of service besides. So they have to go to Pennsylvania, and these simulators are fully booked from 7 in the morning, I believe, till 4 in the afternoon, 5 days a week. And I don't think that there's adequate time available for the pilots. So that's a very big aspect of part of what happened. Also, I was aware after the fact that this particular procedure was inadvertently omitted from the training manual by an oops. It didn't get printed, and it was immediately replaced in the manual. So, a lot of moving parts, a lot of agencies coming together, a lot of hands that have to make sure everything is right. And, and then I don't know, it all has to fall together. I know those 3 men, my son, being the chief pilot, were totally 100% dedicated to their job and wanted to come home at night. And their procedure, like Senator Schumer stated, should never have been practiced in the air. It make your mistakes in a simulator, for God's sake. Practice until you have everything smoothly running. Some of these procedures are, for maximum maximum results, where they may be beyond the limits of what's prescribed or allowed, and they need to see what happens at those extreme circumstances. And so where should it be done but in a simulator, so they can make their mistakes and understand the success of a proper procedure done correctly. So, I live with what if, and if something was a touch different, if COVID hadn't happened. But we need to move from here to save other lives and prevent, multi aircraft collisions for lack of practice. It's stated in the report. So can we act quickly with this, Senator Schumer? Can
Yes,
we
this-
not go through years and years and years and layers of
This is
military OAs? Can we
First-
do?
Yep. Let me just say, we ache for Christian and we love his 5-year-old son that I know is
And
going
a
to
7-year-old daughter? Yes,
7-year-old daughter that are never going to see their dad again.
never.
Dad. But I will do everything I can to follow through on both the report and the additional suggestion that you had made.
So I'm going to unmute.
Yeah.
Because lives are at stake. Lives are at stake.
I think
Yeah.
Greg wanted to say a few words as well.
Yeah, I want to thank the senator for coming on today. Take time out of your day for this meeting. Means a lot to us that it meant something to you to be here in person. And Chris Zeltman, thanks for getting in touch. I read the report. I'm a former Marine helicopter crew chief back in the 70s. So it interests me greatly. And obviously anything that improves safety going forward for aviation, military aviation, Army aviation, we're all for. And so thank you, Senator, for getting this going. This is I think it's going to be important going forward, and certainly could save lives. And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And we will keep pursuing this, Mr. Pryl. We will keep.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm sure. And I think the Army is too. I think an accident like that, I mean, I know it goes all the way to the president's desk. He knew about it. So this is not something that, we all know Army, aviation, has its danger and inbred in it. You can't take it out of it, but you you don't have to accept accidents, and there's always a way to do things better. And hopefully going forward, if this report gets, put into practice, we'll have at least one less than we had up there in Rochester.
Well, thank you. And as I said to you and all of the families on, Ms. Koch, yourself and everyone else, thank you for lighting that candle, because we will now work really hard on making sure these recommendations, which are strong and good recommendations, and everything else is implemented. So
That's really moving forward. The best thing you can do to honor these three men, all experienced pilots, all served in combat, all fought the war on terror. So let's honor them by making the Army aviation a little safer now.
Thank you. Well put. And that's just what we will do.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me thank everybody.
And thank you, Chris.
Senator
Yeah.
Schumer, this is Berkeley Breen at NBC up in Rochester. Could I ask you just one quick procedural question?
Yes.
So who's responsible for making the decision to implement this? Is it something you have to do in the Senate, in Congress? Is it the president, the secretaries of the Army and Air Force?
Yeah, it's mainly the secretaries of the Army and Air Force, but my job will be to stay on them very, very constantly and strongly to make sure they do it. If they need any additional dollars for flight simulators in the budget, I will be able to get that in as well. Okay, Berkeley, thank you. Anyone else?
Senator Schumer, this is Jackie Napier from 13 WHAM. I'm echoing a question that Lexi from WWNY sent in the chat. As you may know, 20 years ago, Fort Drum lost 11 soldiers. Have you been in contact with those on post about these recommendations?
Yeah, these recommendations cover all of the accidents that occurred between 2012 and 2021. So yes, they are. What happened to them is included. The Rochester one was devastating and preventable. There are many that occurred that are the same. And these recommendations, due to the fortitude of the parents we have and the family members we have on the Zoom here, the report was very comprehensive and will affect all the crashes that we have seen and the injuries and deaths we have seen.